welcome to the Beyond Belief live stream. I see there's already 8 people out there. Good to see you. Welcome. It's hard to believe it's Friday again already, but you know what? I'm really glad that it is because it was a hell of a week. I really was looking forward to the weekend. What about you, Angela? How you doing over there?
Doing okay. It's been warm and sunny here. Went out a little bit ago, took the quadruped for his pedestrian experience.
Oh.
And, and that went well. And so now he's fast asleep on the floor and he ate something bad because he's being smelly tonight. So he's being the snory, smelly old dog, but I love him. And so wild and crazy week, but happy to be here. And hello, Jackie. Good to see you in there. So tonight,
it's a Q&A episode.
Yeah.
I've got a list of 15 questions for you, Angela.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So I wanted to keep the list at 12 because I think every list should be 12.
I wonder where you get that from.
But I decided, all right. I could have like made multiple lists of 12.
You could, yeah.
But also those of you who are
could have done an inventory on the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listeners, you can call in with a question as long as my phone battery will go, and I think that'll be okay. You can call in on our phone, or you can just type in your questions in the chat room. Either way. Ask us anything you want. Ask us about the podcast. Ask us about the live streams. Ask us about us. Ask us about anything you want. We don't have to answer your questions, but if we want to, we will. It all kind of depends on what you ask.
Right.
And Dale already has a question. He says, first question, shouldn't it be the J&A episode? Yes, I guess it should be. Shouldn't it? Oh, you're so clever. That's because he's an author. He writes and he knows how to use words, the big words. Okay. So where do we begin? You know what? Before we get into this, let's talk about what's going on in the world of AA. What is going on in the world? Do you know any events that are happening in the near future, Angela?
Wow. Put me on the spot like that.
I don't know of any either.
I think, aren't they having a speaker every first Saturday or Sunday of the month?
We did that.
Another month's going to come up.
That's right. Another one will be coming up.
So yeah, that's what I know.
We just did one last Saturday. I think it was Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember which. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm going to find the links to those talks because Joe C. posts the talks on a podcast thing, which is really cool. So you can go listen to the past talks. And I have been bad because the very first one, I have the recordings of those talks and I have yet to post them anywhere. And I'm so sorry. Wow. But as I mentioned before, I've been depressed for 2 freaking months. So I'm bouncing out of that
this time. Yeah.
So anyway, and then, I've got some podcast episodes coming up and I posted, I feel good about this. I finally got some podcast episodes edited that I recorded back in January. And so I posted one from Justin. I posted one about Rich L. And tomorrow I'm going to post Ibby A. And I really like this. This is one of my favorite episodes, the one I did with Ibby. She was just so great. And I think that you'll like that. And then I've got others I'm going to do like for the next 2 weeks. I'll be posting like 3 a week. And then I'll go on a weekly schedule every Wednesday from there on and see how that works out. So anyway.
All right. That sounds good.
But yeah, it feels good to be editing again and be doing things. I just had to get myself moving, and so just do it. Yep. Anyway. So here we are, questions and answers. Shall I begin with the first question for you, Angela?
Sure. Although I should warn you that I don't know that any of the questions that I wrote down really have that much to do with recovery type stuff. So
that's okay. You can ask me anything you want.
All right, sounds good.
Again, I don't have to answer the questions. I don't have to be truthful either.
It's not a searching and moral question and answer episode. Okay, sounds good.
All right. So here's your first question. What do you most enjoy about doing these weekly live streams?
Oh, what do I most enjoy? Um, I think I most enjoy the talking with you. We just talk easily, and it's we have a natural way of talking with each other, which is nice. And I enjoy the interaction with people in the chat room, because it's, a lot of the people that we have there are, well, actually, I think all of them are not from Boise, or, I've met very briefly in real life, IRL. And so it's nice to be able to see, chatting and different personalities and stuff that you don't always get to see in meetings or seminars or whatever else, and I enjoy that. So those are a couple of the things. I also enjoy that it's a regular routine, that it's something that I do every Friday, unless something came up. And and oftentimes, just like I've been in the past, sometimes with meetings, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I have the energy, and and I don't have anything to say, and people are tired of listening to me, and I say the same thing all the time. But I do it anyway. and so part of it is that the routine or the discipline of being here, and interacting with people. Those are so it's not just one thing. I think there's a lot that I enjoy about it. How about you?
I would say the same thing. I think that the one thing I like that I wasn't ever expecting this, but it's the energy that I get from doing it. It's like I'll come on here like we come on after work. I finished work like a couple hours ago or whatever, and I'm just kind of drained, and sometimes I feel like kind of a little bit worn out. But as soon as you and I start talking and we hit that go live button, all of a sudden it's like a spark of energy comes through me and I come alive, and it's just so cool. And like you, I enjoy the interaction with people in the chat. I mean, we're really fortunate to have this community of people who actually take the time to listen to us. It's so nice. I love that. And to be able to have the interaction and to learn from them and get ideas from them, I just really enjoy that. So, that's what I enjoy. And, next week, on the next Friday live stream, we're going to do a look back at the year, because we've been doing this now for a year, coming up next week.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So we were talking about people, if you feel like it, if you remember anything that you particularly enjoyed from what we've said, or the different podcasts that we've done, the live streams that we've done over the last year. If you want to find it and either send it to us via John or bring it, next week. And we're going to do the same with some of the stuff that was either meaningful to us, or that we just thought was funny, or funny quotes. Sometimes we say really strange things because we're kind of weird people. And so we're going to have fun with it, and kind of look over, the last year, and what this has become, that, neither of us expected to be doing.
It's been wild. I'm glad that we do it, and I'm really looking forward to having that conversation, looking back at everything, at the past year, because it's just, I like doing that. I like anniversaries. I like birthdays. I like being able to look back and see where we started, how we got to where we are. It's just going to be cool. So anyway, look forward to that. So do you have a question for me?
Well, I'll start with an easy one. All like, what is something that you've completely changed your mind about in the last year?
Oh.
So I was thinking along the lines of, oftentimes in politics, they say, you flip-flopped or whatever, right. But really I was thinking about, things that I just see differently now, and that I felt like it's important to, change, and as you learn things, you do better, and evolve somehow. And we don't always talk about, that in such a straightforward way. sometimes in recovery we do, like, I used to be like this and now I do this, but, just in general, is there anything that you feel like you have changed your mind about, that you've learned, some more things about, and so now, you think differently, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I do have something that's been evolving, that's been happening with me that I wasn't really expecting a year ago, but I'm very much okay. So I just sent my paperwork into the state of Missouri to get my certification as a peer support specialist, and I'm really getting serious about this. I'm really wanting to get involved with the community here in Missouri to just get connected with people who work as advocates for people in recovery. And I don't know. I'm just really excited about that. I'm just excited about the greater world of recovery outside of AA. And I'm just looking forward to learning more about that and being connected with these people. I really enjoyed the class of meeting people from different places throughout the state. And I'm in these groups now. And as soon as I get my certification, I'll be able to participate in these Zoom meetings where you get to learn more and meet more people and so forth. So I'm kind of excited about that. And I don't know if that's really changed my opinion on anything, other than my recovery for most of my life has been so centered on AA, in particular. And it's not like I'm going to abandon AA and leave it all together, but I'm really kind of wanting to explore more outside of that, I guess. So that's kind of where I don't know if that's really a good answer to your question.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It wasn't as drastic a flip flop as when I went from a big book thumper to an atheist. So anyway, there's the answer to that question. And I was as honest as I could be, I think. And we've talked about that a little bit, but I am excited about it. I'm enjoying that. So Anchor has a question.
Yeah.
How do you sponsor a theist? Do you think it's easier for a theist to sponsor an atheist or vice versa? I'll let you start with that one, Angela, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I sponsor a theist, pretty similar to, how I sponsor or how I have sponsored, anybody else. I, in the past, have used the book, The Alternative 12 Steps, a secular guide, and it has some, spiritual language in it. And so, so it seems like that book has been helpful for anyone that I sponsored, regardless of their belief or disbelief. Oftentimes when I'm working with somebody and we're going through, the steps, I go with, whatever their, belief system is or what is helpful to them. So one person that I work with was having some difficulties a couple of months back with some of the life stuff that's going on, during the pandemic, and was really stressed out about a lack of support. And my suggestion, was for this person to go to their religious community and interact with them and engage with them, because, it was my understanding that they were doing some things to help their community. And so she could find the support that she was looking for that specific need there. She was contacting me because most of the time, we try to say things are outside issues or whatever, but when we're stressed out, it can affect our sobriety. And so that's what she was contacting me for. And so, that same situation for somebody who's atheist, I would not, send them to a religious community necessarily to have them, seek out help. There, might be a different answer for them. But I haven't had any difficulty with sponsoring atheists or non-atheists. It was strange for me at first because I'm not shy about my atheism, but this person really wanted to work with me, so we made it work, and we still do. So yeah, and then as far as having a believer, my sponsors have been Buddhist and just more, I guess, open-minded, the earth kind of along the lines of agnostic. So I haven't had a sponsor that was straight up, religious.
Mm.
And so I can't speak to that experience because the ones that I've worked with have worked with me and used the language that has been easier for me to be able to work the steps. I guess my service sponsor would be more in the I wouldn't say she's religious, but she's more in the traditional AA category, where she has a higher power that she chooses to call God, type of a thing. But even working with her, she was very much into going to what she believed AA was supposed to be, which is, not having the Lord's Prayer at the end of meetings, and and any of the stuff that would exclude people or make people uncomfortable with, if they had a different faith or lack of faith. So my experience is probably a little bit odd compared to others. How about you?
Well, I really haven't been sponsoring very many people over the last few years, really. When I was at my old traditional group, though, I sponsored people quite a bit. And the last guy I sponsored, I was sponsoring him the traditional way. And this was really weird because I at this point, I was an atheist, and I was very comfortable thinking about the program in a very practical way, non-theistically, right? But I was very secretive about it. I wouldn't tell anybody about this. So when I was sponsoring this guy, I was doing it the traditional way. So when we went to step 3, we got on our knees and we prayed, and I did that for him. And I guess now I would just want to meet someone wherever they are. So I don't think I would have a problem sponsoring somebody who was a theist, because if that's what they're comfortable with, then I would want to encourage that. If that helps them in their recovery, then I would want to encourage that. I don't know if I would go so far as to actually get on my knees and pray with them now. I think I would be honest and say, that's not something that I personally want to do, but, I think it's great for you to do that and find someone that you want to do that with, but I wouldn't do that. But all the stuff that we do in AA through the steps is all practical stuff anyway. I honestly believe that a believer and a non-believer, a theist and a non-theist, do the same stuff. It's just the way that they describe it, or the power, or where they think they get their inspiration from is the only difference. So I don't think I would have a problem with it. I would have a problem with a theist sponsoring me if they were trying to impose their views on me. In other words, if they were telling me that there is one who has all power, that one is God. Maybe if that kind of, if I had that kind of a person, then I would have a really, yes, that's right, Anchor, I was an undercover atheist. But yeah, if I had that kind of a sponsor, I would have a problem with that, and I know that happens to people out there, but otherwise, I don't think. Now, I've heard a lot of people that I've interviewed on the podcast over the years have had this situation where they either had a theist sponsor them, or they sponsored a theist. In fact, Ibby, whose episode will be coming out tomorrow, her sponsor is a theist. In fact, I think that her sponsor is an ordained minister. So, and they don't have a problem. So I think it happens a lot. And as long as people have a mutual respect for each other's worldviews, I think that it's not an issue. So, yeah. Okay. Here's a question for you, Angela. If we dealt with that last one, I think that we kind of did. Okay, Angela. This is kind of a traditions question, I guess.
Oh dear.
I know. Okay. What do you think about singleness of purpose? Should people with other addictions who have never had a problem with alcohol attend closed AA meetings?
Well, I think this will be no surprise to most people that I'm not big on it. I get why some people are, and what it was supposed to do, But, I think we're in a different paradigm now. And so I think that, what we've learned about addiction or substance use and developmental, trauma and, all of that kind of stuff. I think it's different now. And so I don't find singleness of purpose something that I think is helpful. So like at my home group, anyone's pretty much welcome to attend. And we, just had a meeting on, introducing yourself. How do you identify? And is there, a purpose to it, and why? And I think it kind of goes along the lines of singleness of purpose for some groups. But for the places that I feel most comfortable, and the ones that I want to be a part of, I'd say no, because anything that somebody is doing either compulsively or has a problem with, and they're not able to stop, I think can be part of our community and can get help through us. Most of the separate programs do basically the same thing. Sometimes they're more or less effective, or they have more or less success. but like for our group, there have been people who've come up to me afterwards and said that, alcohol isn't their problem. Can they still be part of our group? And particularly for our group, and for being a secular group, I think it's even more important to be open, because there aren't that many in-person groups. And so, now that we have Zoom and all of the stuff online, I think there's a lot of ways that people can gain community, and get the help that they need or are looking for. But because I know for myself, I don't have just one problem. Alcohol wasn't, my only issue. And in some meetings, if it's important to the meeting, or, I care, I might identify as alcoholic to be part of their group, or, whatever it is. But for the most part, I think that it's not that useful, and that it can be, exclusionary to people who need help that we could be helping. So it's not my thing, but
yeah. I probably am coming closer to your view now. There's still part of me that thinks that that for the purpose of identifying that, that a person should have. It's okay for them to have other addictions, but they should also have a desire to stop drinking. I think is important because of that thing to identify. But then there's another part of me that says, but first of all, it's never been a problem, because first of all, when we talk in meetings, we're talking about our recovery. We're not really talking about whatever our addiction was, whatever that issue was.
Substance.
Yeah, whatever substance it is or behavior. We never really talk about that so much, except for we hardly ever, unless we were sharing our story. Mm-hmm. So it's always kind of a moot point anyway, because we're dealing with our recovery. And so I'm kind of like feeling like, it probably doesn't really matter so much. Just as long, it doesn't really matter that much. I don't think it's as big of a deal to me now as it was, but you have to understand, I come from a real conservative kind of a place when it comes to AA, and I'm just still kind of evolving in some of these things. So I think by and large, I just kind of let it go. I don't really make too much of a deal out of it. I've never seen it cause a problem in a group, put it that way.
Oh, I have. Yeah.
Oh, you have?
I have. Major.
I mean, have you seen it? I mean, I see people get upset about it, but have you ever seen a person who has a problem other than alcohol cause the problem? Or is the problem because
it's usually other people. So like there's one group in town that is a closed meeting, and oftentimes people who are new in recovery, they don't know what open or closed or any of that stuff means. They just know that they either are required to go to a meeting, or someone in their family said, hey, you should go to this meeting, or they're just looking to find out what it's about. And so they show up, and they might say that I'm addict alcoholic, or, think that because, they're addicted to alcohol and, some other substance, that, that they should say addict instead, because it encompasses, all of their stuff. And so at this one particular meeting, they will ask them, do you have a desire to stop drinking, straight up. And if the person says yes, then they're allowed to stay. And if they say no, then they ask them to leave. And and I don't think that's
that's a screwed up way to ask too.
Right.
You're using your own lingo. You're using internal lingo, because normal people don't talk like that. I have a desire to stop drinking. They don't. It's like, I didn't know. I didn't really. I mean, this is still kind of complicated.
Right.
I wanted to. I had a desire to stop drinking. I guess when I internalized it, I wanted to stop drinking. I had to stop drinking. It was more like in the beginning, I had to stop drinking. I knew I had to stop.
You wanted the consequences of your drinking to stop.
I wanted it to stop. I couldn't take it anymore. I hated it, but I didn't. I would love to have continued drinking if I could, but I was in a position where I just felt like I had to stop.
Right.
And so if someone said, "Do you have a desire to stop drinking?" I'd say, "Fuck, I don't know."
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yeah. And so I think it's difficult for people who are, not sure, they don't know if they have a problem or not. Maybe they have drinking behaviors that are causing problems in their life, but, maybe, it's cyclical. Maybe it's, not what an old timer would consider, alcoholism. You never know what it is. And I guess what really bugs me is, the language part, but also that usually people are looking for community. I mean, that's the main thing that we get, and the reason, most of us feel comfortable when we hear that, somebody we know, or, when we go to a meeting and say that we have, the same affliction, is community. Like, okay,
Right.
Here's somebody who can really identify with me on a level that, my counselor or therapist or doctor or partner or whoever may not be able to do. And so, if they're making the effort to seek out, community or help, then it just always, it made me feel uncomfortable. So I stopped attending that meeting. And
Well, Jackie says when she was new in recovery, she moved and went to meetings on a college campus where everyone was talking about quitting smoking, and it didn't seem useful to her. As a newcomer, it did help me a lot to know that I wasn't. It helped me a lot when I could identify with other people's, I guess, how they felt about their drinking and how the drinking caused them a problem in their life. I mean, it was useful for me, I guess, in the beginning to have that identification. But then again, if our community is large enough where you have people, and you're going to have, the majority of the people are going to have that experience anyway. But if you also have people with other experiences, like they do in Smart Recovery, for example, it doesn't really seem to cause that harm, as long as you have enough people that I think that you can have that connection with. But still, the bottom line is, if you're talking about the recovery part, it doesn't really matter that so much. Anchor had an interesting question. Anchor says, don't closed meetings go against the traditions and in the spirit of the 12 steps? I don't know. I don't think so. The one problem with closed meetings is that people outside of AA don't know what that means. They think that the meeting is closed, like it's not open, you can't go to it. Right. So that's a real problem, So I mean, that's a common question I get, is they say, "Oh, your meeting's closed." Now meetings are kind of closed; they're on Zoom, but yeah. So people don't know what that means. But no, the closed meeting just being that it's for, it's not for the general community, I guess. So it's for those who want to get into recovery, those who want to quit drinking. So I don't know if that's really
And I think that it was mainly to keep spouses and other people out. So so that it was, I guess, to create a safe place, before safe places were considered a thing. And some people may really view them as that now. But I don't actually know that many people that in recovery, my age and younger, and even above my age, who only abused alcohol. It was, again, at the point that I came in, it was my primary substance, but I had, another issue before I went to alcohol, and I also used lots of other things. I just didn't consider them to be a substance I was dependent on or anything like that. But the majority of my cohorts did, that they went hand in hand with, with pills and, whatever else. And so, so it's, it's a weird thing, I think, for this paradigm to still just be alcohol only, because I don't know that's a thing much anymore.
No, probably not so much anymore. Now, Bree, I've seen this happen at our group a couple of times, but they did come to an open meeting. So Bree says that, I used to believe that all AA meetings should be open, but one night recently in a Zoom meeting, a person entered and wanted to observe for a psych class. And she says the chair was going to let them, but I saw a look of sheer terror on a few of our brand new, less than 1 week sober members. I had to intervene and ask her to come to our Saturday open meeting. So there were some people there that didn't feel comfortable being observed by someone who didn't have, a problem and wasn't there for, but was there to observe. But we have had people at our open meetings when we were meeting live that were like nursing students and so forth that would come and observe. And I was always happy that they could do that. I thought it would be interesting for them to be able to see that there was a secular meeting. And some of the nursing students and so forth who came to observe came specifically because they wanted to see that as a secular meeting. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Bree goes on to say, to which said student got rather belligerent. She was really close to being booted. Boy, it always has to get rough, doesn't it? Of course, they never show up at the open meeting.
Yeah. Well, there are no coffee cups thrown, so it was a successful AA meeting all around, I assume. But we've had that in person before. And I think only a couple online in the last year, that I know of from my home group. But the first time we encountered it with our home group many moons ago, it did create a little bit of a problem because there was one person in particular who didn't want these three new nursing students who showed up to be there, but it was an open meeting, and we were small enough then that I carried a lot of weight. And so I got there late and saw these people leaving and wondered what happened. And apparently the group took a group conscience, the group being 4 other people, I think, and asked them to leave. And I said, we're an open meeting. And I was really unhappy about that because I do view it as an opportunity to be able to help people, particularly nursing students having this knowledge, because I have friends who are nurses and work in the hospitals here, and addiction is still very, very demonized in that profession, because they're usually dealing with the worst of us, or when we're at our worst. And so what they see is really bad and annoying and frustrating, and they just they get the bad stuff. And so to be able to see that there are people who can recover and who are doing well, and that it's not just a hopeless cause, I think it's beneficial. And so we had to have another meeting on that topic. And so I think we had it in our boilerplate for a while, something about if you're here to as a visitor. And I do know one of the traditional meetings that I used to go to, a women's meeting, they would mention it, that, if you are here to observe, or if you, don't feel you have a problem, then we ask that you listen only. you know, and and so they address it in that way. And then that also lets people know that there might be people there that are not seeking recovery or that are observing and such. So it is addressed in a way that way, you know, people who aren't comfortable with it, you know, will be aware and can find another meeting or whatever. So
yeah. Whew, that was a controversial question. Anyway. Whew, some heated discussion going on there. Okay. Do you have a question for me, Angela?
Yeah. Let's see. We can go with an easy one.
All right.
So, what movie recommendation for the last year would you give to people? You know, so what's something that you've seen that you think everybody should watch? That
like
it
a
would be helpful to
recovery-related
them.
movie or just any kind of
Anything,
movie?
yeah, anything.
Well, I really haven't been watching that many movies lately, but I did like. There's a couple of a series I watched on Netflix that I really liked, and one was that Nurse Wretched. I love that for some reason, and I loved the Queen's Gambit. I love those two series that I watched on Netflix. As far as movies go, I know I saw a movie recently, and I thought I liked it, but I just can't remember. It's not coming to the front of my brain right now. Really, I don't really watch that many. I don't watch very many movies or TV really that much, you know. So, but those two come to mind. But I'll think of a movie later on. I just can't think of one right now. What about you? Is there a movie that you've seen?
You can, you know, message it to me later because
Okay.
you know you've done that before actually on some topics. The social dilemma, I think, is a really important one, and I think it affects or you know has to do with recovery in many ways, and it also you know just with the social climate of you know addressing why we're addicted to excitement and to controversy and to you know getting excited about you know political things and why we have to look at our phones so often and buy random things on the internet at you know 11:30 at night and you know all of that and just kind of how it's shaping some of us and our thinking and we're not recognizing it and so you know it made me kind of think about AA and how that you know we get that in there. Most of us feel like it's a good thing and in many respects it is you know but there are some things that are difficult about it or you know like dogma that in the last year I've mentioned has come to light and bothered me, like when I saw people who when we had to quarantine you know felt that they were going to die of alcoholism if they couldn't meet in person and you know and so that that really bothered me because it made me feel like they're addicted to AA you know rather than in recovery and well you know that might be better than you know drinking alcohol it's still you know for me it seemed you know, it seemed like a problem and a difficulty and something that made me uncomfortable about being part of the fellowship because it did seem, you know, cult-like and it made me sad that people were so fearful that if they didn't meet with other alcoholics in person, that they were going to drink and die. And so, so that caused me to be concerned and it made me think about some of the dogma and mind stuff that we actually do that for most of my recovery, I felt like, well, yeah, I guess, that could be a problem, but if it, they're not drinking, then it's okay. And, and maybe it's not okay, so that movie, got me thinking about all of that stuff as well as my experience with AA.
That I need to watch that too. I find myself every once in a while just checking Facebook for no reason, and I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's like I'm at work or something. I'll pick up my phone and I just start looking at Facebook for no reason. It's like, why am I doing this? Scrolling through Facebook. And I read something about Angela's dog. I said, well, that is so cool. That dog is so amazing. I guess it's a little diversion, but there's something
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah,
it's
well, it's a
something
little
they
hit of,
design it.
yeah, it's a hit of dopamine, and they talk about
Yeah.
that in
Yeah.
the Social Dilemma, and yeah, and why that's a difficult thing, and most of us don't realize that, and yeah, so that's I think it's an important movie, and that it does have to do with mental health,
Yeah, it
and
does.
and I feel like that's where I'm at with things and in life is, that I guess that's another thing from the first question I was asking that has changed for me, that I've seen this evolution in my mind from, talking about sobriety. And sometimes I use the term depending on, if I think it's the most appropriate one. But, then I went more to recovery and feeling like that's a better word for, what I do or where I am or how I like to be. But actually, I think it's more wellness,
Mm-hmm.
because, I think that's where I want to be at life. That I don't want to think of myself as recovering constantly, because there is a sense in there that there's a better place to be, or that I should be in a better place, or something that I need to overcome. And really, I think it's I'm dealing with life. I'm recovering from being born.
Yeah, right.
Being a
True.
human on
It's
this
like
planet.
everybody's in recovery.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I think it's more, wellness is the
Yeah.
term that I would choose now. And yeah,
I
and
like
so it's
that actually.
interesting for me because when I've tried to step into more of the traditional meetings lately, or talk to some of my friends that are in traditional meetings, even though I understand what they're saying, it feels like we're just in different places, and that's a little bit strange to me, or disconcerting, not in a really upsetting way, but just in yeah, something has changed within my thinking, particularly in the last year,
Yeah.
on how I talk about what life is for me now. So
I've been me too, Angela. But I really like what you had to say. I really like what you looking at it as wellness rather than as recovery, because
mhm,
recovery is like you're not satisfied with where you are. You have to keep striving for something else, or But
mhm,
just wellness, just having that sense of wellness is really kind of what we're really looking for anyway. So that's kind of a really interesting point that you made there.
yeah,
Um, well, I had a question for you, Angela,
okay.
that I think you mentioned last week that you were considering maybe starting a podcast, and I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit and what you were thinking about doing, and because I think it would be a great idea. I think you'd be good.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm a little distracted by the ice cream truck
I thought I heard something going on there.
in the middle of March in Idaho. I mean, yes, it did get up to 55 degrees today, but come on, people, the ice cream truck at 6:45
That's
at night.
hilarious.
Anyway, sorry. um, yeah, so I have considered it,
Hmm.
and I have a few items of equipment that I've gathered over the years. Actually, my partners kind of put them together because we were going to use them for part of our business, and decided to go a different direction. I'm still in the early phases of what that might look like. I kind of mentioned last week that I like the idea of talking about consciousness, and some of these topics of attunement, and why some of us have developed the way we have, and either become addicted, or have trouble with relationships, or all of that kind of stuff. But with people who are also on a path to wellness, and or in recovery, or whatever term works. And so it's more of, I want to talk about these things in an environment that isn't a meeting,
Right.
so that we're not confined to talking in the way that we do in
Right.
meetings. I think it's helpful. I think as far as self-help groups go, I like the way that AA is structured, and that ideally you're supposed to talk about your own personal experience rather than, you should do this,
Right.
John, and this is what you should
Right.
do, and this will fix your problem, and I think you should do this. So, I do like that as far as meetings and stuff, but I would like to, just talk to people in a way about, I don't know, physics and consciousness and simulation and whatever else, just different ideas and ways that that possibilities and perspectives on existence. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that, and I don't know if I will actually decide to do it or not. We're still in this part of the pandemic where I'm still mostly staying at home and not gathering in groups yet, although I am scheduled for the vaccination, which is nice. And so
I saw your post about that you found a place, but it was like 3.5 hours away, right?
Well, for the state of Idaho, they put together a list because they were having difficulties, and I think they have this in other places too, where with a couple of the vaccines, you open it up and there's so many doses in it, and so if someone doesn't show up, you're left with a dose of the vaccine, and it can go to waste. And so they put this list together, and so I got on the list because I have a pretty flexible lifestyle, and I could get someplace pretty quickly, around the Treasure Valley. But this place called, and unbeknownst to them, I'm in Boise and they're in Pocatello, which is about 3.5 hours away. And yes, I could probably get there in a day. It depends on when I left and stuff. But that's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be someplace more within your county at least. And so it's a glitch with the system. And so I mentioned on my post that I'm okay, personally, because I do have an appointment to get it fairly soon. I feel bad that the system isn't working, that they still don't have a reliable way to get vaccines to the people who really want and need them. And so so hopefully they will start to fix that.
It's kind of screwed up here too, but at least people are starting to get them finally. But it's like they're like way far away. They're like little towns scattered around. Like there was a woman I work with, and she's in the Kansas City area, and they wanted her to go down to like Joplin or something to get a shot. And she's like, no, that's like 3 hours away too. It's like crazy.
Right.
So anyway. Any question for me?
Oh, yeah. I can't remember which question's which because, just kind of go on. So if you had to if someone was making like a video montage of you in your life, in the last year or even in the last few months, what would be your theme song? What song would it be set to?
You asked the most difficult question. Oh man. And
I want to see this from some people in the chat room too. I want to know what your personal theme song would be right now. And if it's not obvious, tell me why.
Oh, Angela, you asked. That's a really tough question. I don't have any idea. Oh man. Oh God.
You can take a minute. Take a deep breath. It's okay.
Over the last couple, oh man. I mean, I have to think. It's kind of funny. I was kind of going down memory lane a little bit. You asked me just the last couple of months, but I was kind of thinking. I was looking for my high school diploma, and I think you saw my picture.
Right? Yeah.
Because I had to actually make a copy of my high school diploma and send it in for my application to get this certification. And as I was scrambling for my high school diploma, I was going through all these old pictures I had from back in my early college days, like when I was 19 years old. And
Yeah.
this is when I
It
was
was
first,
adorable.
I was first realizing at this time that I had a problem with alcohol. And I was running across these pictures that were taken of this party I was at. And I happened to post the picture that was actually a nice picture. The other ones, I'm drunk. I'm laying. I don't know why the photographer took these pictures, but I'm passed out on people. I have this crazy look in my eyes. I've got crap spilled all over my suit. I should have posted those pictures too, you know. But it was like I don't know. I was looking at those pictures, and it just kind of took me back in time to how it helped me realize just how young I was when I was
Hmm.
having these problems, you know. Because I didn't really feel that young at the time. But it was kind
Yeah.
of funny after I posted that, someone posted a list of the songs that were popular in 1981, and it was
Ah.
kind of fun to think about those songs. And I guess the one that I liked was it Blondie, "The Man from Mars," eating cars.
Oh yeah.
The man
Yeah.
of Mars is
I remember
eating
that.
bars, and
Yeah.
so I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, that song, when I saw that there, I remembered that song from that time. So that would be my song. The man from Mars is eating
The
bars.
Man
The man
from
from
Mars.
Mars eating
Okay, I'm gonna
bars.
listen to that as soon as we're done with
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, that'll get them
But I
to
forgot too.
the
I
cycle.
mean that we actually did have some good music at that time, and I always thought the music kind of sucked in the '80s, but it really wasn't
Mhm.
that bad, really, especially
Yeah,
the early '80s.
right. Well,
So
and you said that you mostly listen to country music, right?
I did, but we still had some good music though too. Well, the problem was I did live in Kansas, and so I would go to these bars that played country music, and what I would do is I would go and decide, you know what, I'm gonna stop and have a beer someplace, and
Mhm.
I would stop and have a beer, and I would put a quarter in the jukebox, and I'd play some country tunes, and I'd drink my beer, and I would stay there for the day, one after another, after another, after another, after another, after another.
Mhm.
And that's what we did. That's what I did. So anyway, yeah,
Wow.
Bobbert says the '80s music was great, and but at the parties, yeah, at the parties we grooved
Yeah,
to the tunes. Oh God.
yeah. No, I think most of mine back then were kind of depressing. It
Mm-hmm.
was, yeah, like Mad World. Um,
Oh,
yeah, that kind of a
yeah.
thing. But yeah, I'm loving what people are putting in here. So One Night to Bangkok, it's
What I
great.
did.
And yeah, Liz Fair and Anna Kendrick. Wow, Joe, you are such a surprising person. I mean, you surprise me all the time. You are a diverse personality. I love it. Um,
The last
Jimmy
couple
Buffett.
of months I've been so depressed. It would have to be some kind of a depressing song. It'd have to be some
Yeah,
kind of a sad song, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe it could be some inspiring song when I'm trying to come out of the depression,
right.
you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
So I'm Still Standing. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
So let's see. Anchor has. Oh yeah, Fiona Apple's new album is pretty good. One of the songs that I like is it called Under the Table?
Mm.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. And I don't remember, Jackie, did you share that one with me? Either Jackie did or Jonathan's sister. I forget, but it's really good. It's a sassy piece. A
Yeah.
sassy piece, I say. What else did we get here? Oh yeah, John Lennon, Imagine.
Mm.
That's definitely you, Dale. I would have, if you guys had just put, songs in there without any names, I probably would have pegged you for having that one. Detox Mansion and Rehab by the late Amy Winehouse. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, I like
that's
that song too.
yeah, Huey Lewis in the News, Highway to Hell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, cool.
Well, let's see some more questions I have for you before we end up. I might skip some of the ones that I think aren't so great. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. Oh, Well, I don't think that's kind of controversial. I'll ask you. A question that, and I think that you'll be able to answer it because you're actually, very kind of a literate person. What?
Yeah, no pressure, no pressure.
what? What book would you recommend to someone who's fairly new into recovery, and why would you recommend that book?
So fairly new into recovery.
Yeah, someone that just kind of getting sober.
Mhm. Yeah, it would depend on the person, So I generally make my recommendations, based on who the person is or what I know of them. If they share a little bit, then sometimes I can get a feel for what might speak to them best. But if I didn't have that information and didn't know whether they had a faith tradition or anything about them, I still would likely suggest Joe C's book, Beyond Belief. So yeah, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you is if you were, stranded on a desert island, what recovery book would you have? And I was thinking for me that Beyond Belief would be good because he has quotes from a lot of different people, so it'd feel like I have, some mini books in there with all of that, and some of the stuff that he writes himself is good too. Plus, there's a lot of pages in it, and so if some of them got damaged by like a hurricane or some sort of tropical storm that went through, which I imagine would on a desert island or something, then I'd still have a lot of reading material left, so that would be okay. And and also I just think that it is a book that is open to anyone within recovery. So whether you went to AA meetings or any other 12-step meetings, and even some outside of that, I think that it has a lot to offer.
Yeah, it's a good book.
How about
you? Well, when it comes to books I would recommend, and again, it really does depend on the person. But the one book that I really, really liked, that it's probably been a year now since I read it, maybe even longer, I don't know. But it surprised me that I liked it so much. The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober. And it was by Catherine Gray. And it was just such a great book. And I think the reason I liked it so much is she took she went through her biography where she's talking about her drinking and everything. But then she talks about her recovery in a way that was really unique, where she was relying on networks of friends that she just kind of met online and so forth, that were like online support that later became in-person support. And I just liked it so much because it was a modern way of recovery. It was something that it was just different. And I just think I'd recommend it to women in particular, but also for younger women. I think it was a good book, but I think guys would like it too. I really liked that book a lot. So, and I want to, I ever since I read it, I will reach out to her just to see if maybe she would come on the podcast. I kind of think that she's like a bigger name and she might not want to talk to me, but I really liked her book so much. So I would recommend that one to anybody who hasn't read it yet.
Yeah, cool.
Andy Webster what's he saying here? I have only been in AA for 4 months. It seems like at most of the meetings I attend, people tend to keep it light, probably because they only have a few minutes to talk. Curious how you balance keeping it light versus facing your shadows and getting into the heavier stuff. That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, I think with that, it depends on the kind of meeting it is, and at least in my area, it tends to be like you described, with kind of keeping things light. I would suggest going to speaker meetings. That's where I found a lot of the identification with people who had done some of the things I'd done or had felt the way I had felt in my deepest, darkest spots of addiction. But I recall being frustrated sometimes at meetings because, it seemed like, everybody was fine and things were going great with them. And I couldn't really relate to that. But when I went to the speaker meetings, I get to hear a person's entire life story. And so I could see where they were like me, and what they did, and then how their life is better now. So yeah, so I'd suggest speaker meetings, if that's something that that would be helpful to you, to hear somebody's entire story, because yeah, we're not all there because life, has always
Right.
been good for us, and we're doing well, and and we just decided to start going to AA, because we're psychopaths. Well, I mean, some of us did, but
Well, I wonder if some of that's a product of of being on Zoom now too.
yeah,
Um,
it could
'Cause
be, but I don't know. I mean, I can see that in regular meetings as well, or the meetings where people are like, you have to talk about, solution, and so
right.
then you don't get to hear, some of the deeper, darker, stuff on where you're at tough spaces.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, at most meetings, I think when you really get into the deeper stuff, it's probably more like the meeting after the meeting where you're talking to someone after the meeting. You might go out to coffee with somebody or something like that. But then again, there's been a lot of meetings I've been to where the conversation might turn really serious because somebody brings something up that they needed to talk about.
mhm.
And that does happen. But for the most part, Andy's probably right that yeah, you don't really go too deep in your share. You have a topic you're talking about, and you kind of go into that a little bit, and probably for the larger the meeting, the less deep you go with that. But I think the
Yeah.
main thing is, I think that what it is with how we network and get to know each other is not
Mhm.
necessarily during the meeting, but the relationships that we have after the meeting. So it's like connecting with people and getting to know them on a deeper level as friends, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it depends on if you have a home group as well,
Yeah.
because I think, at least my home group, sometimes it can be light, and sometimes we had to be, really watch ourselves because we could sound really, really elite, like, oh, everybody here is having a problem because they, can't get their grad school paper done on time, or something like
Right.
that, just really, yeah, high level problems. But in general, it's a place where, yeah, I can say, whatever's going on with me, and I feel comfortable doing that, and other people do too. And and we share things with each other when we lose someone, or when a friend of mine had to put her dog to sleep rather recently,
Oh,
and and that's stuff that's tough, and so we can be supportive of each other, and talk about feelings that come with that, which can be extra strong and sometimes out of proportion, and yeah, so we do, at least at our meeting, share some of the tougher stuff, so it can get into the depths of our dark spots as well. And yeah, and sometimes it's just more surface level things of day-to-day stuff.
okay. So I guess we've come up on an hour.
Yeah, I
We
love
can,
Dell's comment. This episode was far more fun than I had first
yeah,
imagined.
it was fun.
You're so adorable. So, all right.
And that's it. That's another live stream on a Friday night, a nice Q&A episode. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We'll be back again next week for another live stream, and look out for some podcast episodes be coming out, especially one I'm going to post tomorrow about Ibby. I think you'll like that one. Y'all take care. We'll be back soon.